Welcome to Trucker Talk Radio. You're on with J and J. I'm John, and this is Justin. Today is my sister's birthday, March 4th,
Birthday.
2025. About 8:18 p.m. So we've got about 45 minutes before we hear Trump talk tonight, address Congress. So that should be interesting. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. This whole thing with Ukraine and
Yeah,
the Democrats are off their rockers. I mean, I don't mean to be totally partisan on this show, but it's just I just don't understand what is going on. Why
it is crazy.
the why they see a right to or the need to stand up for Zelensky when Trump is standing up for America
Mm-hmm.
and then and then they're fighting against Doge and all this wasteful spending. I saw Congressman on a show today. I can't remember exactly which one. It was on one of it was on Fox this afternoon, and he was talking to Martha McCallum, and he was talking about how $26 billion was sent to a bank after Biden left office or right before Biden left office for NGOs, purpose for NGOs. Some of those NGOs hadn't even been set up yet. They hadn't even been set up. So they are sending money, billions of dollars to these NGOs that people in the Biden administration will run or be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the process of setting this up. Taxpayer money,
That's correct.
yours and my hard-earned money,
That's right.
and everybody out there, and they're going to fund these NGOs, these basically non-profit organizations, and some of them haven't even been established yet. So the money's sitting in a bank because it can't go. So that's how Doge was able to find it,
Mm.
because they're like, why is all this money just sitting in a bank? And it's because these companies are not yet established to receive the money.
Yeah, just sit there. Just sit there, money. Don't do anything,
I'm
right?
I mean, unbelievable.
I'll tell you something else that just blows my mind, and this might be a little controversy, but to me, this is common sense. It's the Democrats now having such an issue with boys playing girls' sports.
Yeah,
Now,
how does that not pass the Senate?
right.
How does that not when 70% of America or 80%, whatever the number is, does not agree with men in boys or men and women's sports?
Yeah. How's it
I
not?
mean, how can that not be a bipartisan decision?
Right. I mean, I get it. You have, boys and girls, men, women that, are transgender or, feel like they have hormones. Okay. I didn't understand. At some point, there will be enough of them that they can just play against each other and have a transgender league.
Hmm.
Now I understand you can't because there's not enough, accumulative in an area. But you have these grown men that, yeah, they might have some female, you know, authenticity to them, but their muscular and strength of a man has no business competing against a female. It's just not fair, not equal.
Well, you know who's going to be a guest tonight? This volleyball player. She got brain damage from being this trans athlete spiked a ball and hit this volleyball player in the head. She has permanent brain damage,
And
and
I can,
she's gonna be at the speech tonight.
I mean, I'll give you a great example just like that. My daughter, she doesn't play now, but she used to be a very good softball pitcher, and she always a lot of times played against girls 2 or 3 years older than her. And one
Hmm.
night, she was 9 years old at the time pitching, and she got hit with a line drive in her chest, and it left a bruise. It left the seam marks on her chest because she didn't have her protection pad on like we thought she did. And I could only imagine if that would have she was 8 and that girl was probably 11 or 12. I could only imagine if it had been a 12-year-old boy swinging that bat and hit her. I mean,
Yeah.
I could easily see a lot of accidental things happen because of just the brute strength. I mean, guys, just your testosterone at that age and a little older, and even in your 20s, you're just developed a complete different way in strength that females really don't have an opportunity to be that strong without true working out, probably doing steroids to really get beefed up, where most boy, teenage boys, they muscle up pretty easy, and especially when they slender out from puberty and stuff. And I could see that happening a lot, and I just don't
I
understand.
just don't understand the motivation behind it and the parents behind that. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? And do you think it's really okay for your to be politically correct, not calling him him or her?
Right.
You're a transgender athlete going into a locker room with these girls, changing with these girls, getting on the court and warming up with these girls, and you can see the difference in the physicality.
Easy.
How is that? What is okay about that? If you want to have a separate league for them,
Right.
by all means. But why do they have to compete with women? Why?
Right.
And then this is coming from a party that claims to be, I mean, is all about the Me Too movement,
Right.
is all about feminist rights, protecting feminism, and you're not protecting these girls.
Not a lick. You're exactly right. It's just,
I just
it's absurd, because that should be an easy thing to go through Congress. Boom, done. Let's move on to the next thing. But then I don't know how people can vote for. I don't know how they get enough votes to get back in office. Is what I don't understand.
Well, and Hollywood's behind it. I don't know if you saw. So I was really put off the other night. I watched Conclave. Have you
Mm-hmm.
seen it?
Yep.
And good movie till the end. And I was like, "Are you kidding?" I mean,
Yep.
the Pope. Spoiler alert! And I'm sorry for those who haven't seen it, but the Pope ends up being, what is probably 0.0001% of the world's population, and ends up having ovaries and women parts in addition to a male genitalia. I mean, and they're trying to prove a point that this is possible. Okay, but we're not really arguing that. If that happens, okay, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about kids at a young age
Mm-hmm.
wanting to transition and then wanting to compete. I mean, we can also argue about the transitioning part at that young of age. I mean, you're
Right.
12 years old and you're talking about transitioning to the other sex.
Yeah. How much do you really understand it and
How
know?
much do you, and a lot of it is what you're hearing today. I mean, and this movie's like, Conclave. Oh, I just couldn't decide.
You would. I don't know the age. I can't remember how young your youngest kids are, but of course mine. Even at like 10 years old, she went to a very rural country school for middle school and elementary school, and I was amazed by the number of boys and girls that all claim to be gay. And I know,
How do they know? They don't even know what they don't have. They had sex? Have do they have? I mean, they have. I mean, I guess at that age you start feeling whether you like boys or you like girls or whatever. But even still, there's so much unknown at that age. I mean,
exactly.
you're experimenting. You're starting to experiment. You're starting to figure things out. There's
Yeah.
no reason to get graphic on here, but that is a very, getting into your early teenage years. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. And I have a feeling it's a lot. I mean, I know, I don't just have a feeling. It's our education system. I mean,
Yes.
they are indoctrinating these kids and just pushing it, pushing it, pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't, when I was during COVID, the kids they were doing their schooling on computers.
Yep.
So my son is sitting in the kitchen first day of class, and his science teacher is talking about, how she comes up with a story, she's introducing herself, but then she's talking about how she's so happy for the kids today because they can express themselves and their sexuality. She had to hold it in all of her life, and she starts crying. And I'm like, I thought she was supposed to be going over your syllabus. And isn't this biology? I mean, what are we doing?
Got off subject there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and I'll tell you one thing that I have noticed from having a daughter and young girls, especially, it's a lot of the stuff they see on TV. There's not traditional families on TV anymore. It's always diverse. You
yeah,
got, you have a gay boy or you have a gay girl. You see them making out and stuff. And I've got gay friends. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it. Yeah.
Have
But
time.
don't force it on me. That's I don't force my sexuality on anybody except for my wife.
Exactly.
I don't force myself on, my views on anybody. I mean, express my opinion. I don't, and I don't need to see it. And what it's getting to me is what's frustrating. Okay, gays are fine, and you can argue that they were born that way or not. But okay, if you're talking about being born that way on the gay side, how can you say that for trans, they were born a boy or a girl? There are
Yep.
two genders.
That's
They're
it.
born a boy or a girl. You can say, there's, look at Conclave. There's a chance that is, like I said, 0.0000001% of the population.
Yep.
You can argue that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about transitioning girls to boys. And another thing why this is so important to bring up on this show is because a lot of times our drivers, they're away from the home for a long period of time.
Yep.
So they're trusting, in a lot of cases, other individuals to help raise their son or daughter.
That's right.
So, and there's no reason that a teacher needs to, you know, like
Mm-mm.
we said, indoctrinate that kid to think that that is not their business. It's not their place.
Exactly. I agree. The teacher needs to teach the subject that him or her went to college for to teach it and leave
That's
everything.
right.
I mean, they can be there if a kid has a question or wants to talk to them about how they're feeling. Okay, you take it to the side, you talk to them, one on one, not in front of the class. You don't bring it up, and be the adult in the group instead of trying to. A lot of teachers now they try to buddy up with them. I'll be honest, I don't remember any teacher ever buddying up with me when I was growing up. Now I got a few extra little preferences because I was a star athlete, so maybe I didn't get in trouble as much as I should have because they didn't want me suspended for a baseball game or a football game, basketball game,
Right.
whatever. But I didn't have just buddy teachers. They were strict. I always felt like I didn't learn as much as I could. And of course, I wasn't the most biggest fan of high school my last couple of years. But, with these kids now, there's so much social media for kids is so tough. And this brings it into it, not even the fact of them seeing all the different things and how kids are feeling. And I've noticed this with girls, is, when you went to high school, you had a table of jocks, you had a table of nerds, you had the band geeks over here, you had the loners, you had the losers, you had just the middle people that didn't really go anywhere. Well, there's not
Yep.
that group anymore that's anywhere. They feel like, well, okay, especially with girls, because my girls same way. They don't have as much confidence. They Even a grown woman that can be drop dead gorgeous, she can still find something wrong with herself. That's just the female.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. And these girls now, they can't find a place to get into a clique with. So a lot of them will start, hey, I might have some feelings for a girl. Okay, there's nothing wrong with being a female and going, you're an attractive female. Now us guys, we don't do that stuff. That's just we don't go
No,
that way. For the most part, we don't even say you're handsome. But
that's right.
girl, and if you develop a
I
feeling,
do like your haircut, though.
well, thank you. You
You got a
think
good haircut.
we must go the same style. But I can see, a best friend, they, start hanging out, got a lot in common. Okay, you might have a feeling there or something, but you're not ready to just go and say, "Hey, I'm gay now," or "I'm bi."
Mm.
you have to figure that out. And you don't have to completely express yourself in front of everybody if you don't want to. You figure it out on a slow end. But it's so, I understand the way the world is totally different than when me and you grew up. It's just, it's sad, in my opinion, to be a kid with all the opportunities they do have coming up after school. It's just, childhood is already hard.
It
And I,
is hard.
I think
My son was on the so my son, like me, so we were both, my son played hockey, I played baseball, tennis, soccer, and then was also in the band, played sax, and my son was a drummer, just naturally talented. My wife's a singer, and he's on the drum line. He was just talking. He's very conservative, has the same viewpoints that my wife and I have, and he was talking to a buddy about it. They were just talking about different things, and one kid overheard him talking, and he was was talking about homosexuals. Not to this kid though, had
right,
nothing to do with it, and just having a conversation with another kid sitting right beside him, not yelling or screaming, not saying anything bad about homosexuals, just that he was against it, and
right.
um and he's like 14 years old at this point. So she hears him talking, feels offended, takes personal offense to it. And he's like, so at that point he was going to need to decide pretty much between hockey, and he was associate captain of the hockey team, and he's on the snare drum line. So he's kind of big time on both sides. And he was gonna need to decide one way or the other eventually, but he wasn't quite there yet to make that decision. Well, the band director made it for him, and was basically like, "You're out of here. That kind of talk is just not going to be tolerated." So it was really unfortunate because he was a solid drummer, and
That's crazy.
loved it, and probably would have done like a jazz band. He could play the drum set pretty well. So, but now he was out, and that's
Well,
just unfortunate.
and what you were saying there, it made me think of something. I grew up. I didn't talk a lot of politics. We started getting in politics in school around seventh or eighth grade during one of the presidential elections. I remember, talking to adults, talking to other students, talking to teachers. We could talk politics. We
Yeah,
could talk about what the Republicans thought or talked about what the Democrats wanted. No one got mad. You can't
no,
talk to a Democrat and Republican can hardly talk to each other.
we're so divided. We're so divided. You can't have a differing viewpoint, and it's a fight. I mean, it is a fight. I mean, my sister-in-law, she made a post. She's a Democrat, and that's fine. We don't have any problems with it. We don't bring it up very much when we're together. And but she made a post, and my wife's aunt felt the need to respond with her own post, and then they're not necessarily at each other, but they were just you could tell
It's
it was getting tense.
yeah, yeah. I've noticed that. I mean, even after Trump's ordeal the other day with Zelensky, there was people on my Facebook thread posting how terrible Trump was and why he wasn't standing for Ukraine and this and this. And I'm like, I'm not even, I'm not going to respond because it's not going.
Yeah, I try to respond, like I'll put political stuff on our media pages.
Mhm.
I try not to put them on our personal pages just because I want to keep those separate. But you know,
It's crazy.
back to the Zelensky thing. What people don't understand is that countries make money during war. They make a lot of money. Zelensky has made the reason why he's traveling around seeing these countries, and the reason why he's saying that we're so far away from a deal is because he's making money. He's coming away with millions of dollars, billions,
Yeah.
and it's good for his country. Now, his people may be suffering, but his country is raking in the cash right now. So he wants it to go on. I mean,
Yeah, that's good.
That's a well-known fact. He otherwise, if he was really hurting and scared for, his own personal life, he would have signed a deal. No, JD Vance is talking about diplomacy. He's talking about diplomacy. Like,
Yep.
he wants to end the war. Trump wants to end the war. And this is coming from Democrats who used to say war is bad. War is awful. We
Hmm.
need to stay out of wars altogether.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. It's
it's totally
crazy.
backwards.
It is. It's crazy, and it is. I mean, it's evident that he's just using it as a cash cow. And I mean, I get it. If you're, if you're in that situation and can do it, and you're getting away with it, no one's really putting your, feet to the fire. Why not try to get everybody's money until it stops? I mean, you got to give. If
Yeah,
you're gonna go all out, go all out. Don't do it halfway. And that's what he's
that's
doing.
right.
And as American people, I just wish that more people could see past the media stuff and what they think they know, and really pay attention and see how things evolve around around the world and even around our own country. That how things are done is not we should be doing it in our best interest. It don't matter about any other country's interest to begin with. If it ain't benefiting us, we shouldn't be doing it. And I think we lose sight of that because we got enough problems here to be giving Ukraine, hundreds of millions of dollars. We got.
America first. Make America great again. And I don't how can you be against MAGA? How can you be against that thought process?
I don't know.
Make America great again. Where are you? That just speaks to the corruption.
Hmm.
These Democrats are so in tune with each other. They're so just, you got to give it to them. They stick together.
They do. Yep.
They say the same talking points over and over and over again. They read off a script. They're so robotic. And
Well,
yes,
it's even like the tariffs. Okay, people scared to death, don't like tariffs. Tariffs is a long term plan as well for Trump, because what you want to do is you want these companies first to go, well, hey, I can come back to America. I can save 25% or 10% from China. We need and should be making all our own stuff. We don't need
we
to
should
replace
be.
other people. And the only way to ever do that is to make it to where they will come back and build in America, which creates more jobs. And
Honda's doing it. Honda's doing it now. They
yeah,
just announced it. They're going to start building cars in Indianapolis.
exactly.
That's, where that came from. They
Yeah,
don't want to pay tariffs.
exactly. You get more jobs here. That will eventually help the overall economy. Yes, we're going to have to pay more for stuff for a while, but we don't
Well,
need.
and also these tariffs they're starting, Trump is really trying to end the drug crisis. He's
Yep.
really trying to stop fentanyl from coming across our borders. That's what he's trying to do. That's what's in what the write up.
Hmm.
That is what's in the bill. That's what he's trying to do is end drugs coming into our country. And he wants China, he wants Mexico, he wants Canada. He wants them to stop and or at least help
Help, exactly.
with ending the drug crisis. Help, put some boots on the ground.
And I don't think a lot of people truly understand how death defying that fentanyl is. I mean, it's probably the scariest thing that I've ever seen, because when I grew up, drugs wasn't a huge big thing. I was from a small town. People smoke pot.
Yeah, same here.
I might have found a few people that might have did cocaine back in the night. Was it that was a
Cocaine is rampant now.
yes.
My son at UCF says he sees it all the time.
Yeah, it's big everywhere now. But when we had pot in high school and stuff, you didn't have to worry about anything. You just rolled it up. Everybody smoked it, went to sleep, woke up, ate something. You went on about your business. Now
Right.
doing that, if you're a pill popper, and you're getting pills off the street, or a third party person or whatever, it don't take but just a little bit to be somewhere in anything you're taking, and you're dead. I mean, just that
Yeah.
quick. And I
Yeah.
wish, and drug is such a big drug issues are such a big problem here, that one or two bad batches come into America and the volume that they come in, then they worried about COVID knocking off people. I mean, you could have an epidemic with fentanyl and you can't get no cure for it if you ain't got a Nas can or whatever it is, the Narcan to try to get you back. I mean, it's bad shit. I hate to say it that way. That's what it
It's
is.
the truth.
You
You're
know,
right.
people should take more notice in that because I've lost friends for drug overdoses and just overuse of it. And if you got that little extra in there, people get hooked and then they get slipped. It's no different than trying to sell drugs to kids because you're trying to get the long-term client. you know
Right.
it's scary, and we should do anything in our power to keep that from trying to come in. You're not going to be able to keep it all away because it's just the way things are. But anything that we can do to do that should be approved, saluted, whatever, on both sides of the aisle to get things like that done. And it just seems like it always gets pushed to
It's
the
always talking points put in place to make Trump look bad. And it's always, they can't acknowledge one thing that Trump has done and say that it's good. They cannot do it. It's just not in their vocabulary. It's just, it won't happen.
no. It'd probably be the pigs would start flying if they ever gave him a true compliment. Probably.
I do want to talk about trucking, and I want to talk about these rates and um, where they're at, and where they're headed. Really, everybody talks about the good old days, with COVID and rates
Mhm.
we saw were, we haven't seen those rates ever, and everybody really forgets where they were, like right up until COVID. I think van rates at that point were below $1.60 a mile.
All right.
But dad is showing rates at January looked to be a really strong month,
Mm-hmm.
at $2.16 a mile for van, and now they've dropped off to 204. First quarter is really slow. Van rates are showing above $2 a mile.
Yep.
Flatbed rates are holding strong at 244 a mile, and then reefer rates have dipped a little bit from a strong January was the strongest month we've had in a long time. Reefer rates are back down from 254 a mile to 236 a mile. So just seeing what have you seen out there, and you're a little closer to it than I am.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a tick. Seems like you still have those crazy ass loads out there that they'll want you to do $1 a mile, but we don't see near as many. We've had some good van stuff here lately with a couple of my fleet managers. They got a couple that can get been averaging 235 to 250 a mile. Flatbed it's been on the uptick. I know we talked with a an agent the other day, and he was talking about it had been up about 20% over the last couple months that they've seen a growth. I
Yeah.
think one thing that owner operators need to understand, even if we had, this is my personal opinion, it might be completely wrong, but I am kind of on the front lines and see stuff a lot. Even if we have a pandemic again, like what we had a couple years ago, I don't think the rates will get back to where they were. There's a lot more drivers now because every driver and their brother went and bought a truck during COVID. And they're all still trying to survive because they bought their trucks at 2 to 3 times the money. And
Right.
we're so saturated with drivers and owner ops and just trucks in general that if we had a crisis, there's more trucks now. So you're not going to get the economical just outreach of prices because there's enough people to fill the hole. And I mean, they'll go up, yes, but getting to where they were, I don't think so because there's enough people. Plus, everybody's going to think, hey, we're at another COVID. There are going to be more people go buy trucks as soon as it happens. And which,
If the rates tick up a little bit, I mean, guys talk, and guys tend to, embellish,
yeah, yeah,
their pay, to make themselves look good. So I mean, be definitely, be careful what you who you listen to. But you know, and a lot of times those guys that are doing well have been with that company for a long time, so they're
yeah,
they're being taken care of first. So you still got One of the things that I want to see for our next show is we really need to look in, and this is important for us to know, see what driver turnover averages are now.
Yeah.
That's, you guys got to stay where you are for 6, 8, 10 months, and really far beyond that if you can. Get over a year, because these carriers are really starting to crack down, and
Hmm.
you have more than 2 or 3 jobs in a year, you're not getting hired.
Nope. That's become a big issue, even where, I place guys at. And I mean, I get it. Sometimes you get into a bad situation, you just got to go. A lot of times it's, a dispatcher, or, maybe you were told something that you don't get. Like I told a guy the other day that was talking about leaving where he was, and he was complaining about everything. He was like his second load, and he was trying to find another job. I'd love to have him if I know he was going to stay, and put him somewhere good. But like I told him, I said, man, don't just quit just because this. I said, call somebody at corporate. Talk to
Mhm.
him about your situation. Tell him that, hey, me and this dispatcher, we don't mesh, or he's not doing this or doing that. As long as you're doing what you're doing, call somebody, in a retention, your recruiter, somebody, just somebody, and voice your opinion. Don't be rude about it. Just talk as a business person and see if you can get put somewhere else before you just jump ship. Because
Right. Like, look, guys, more times than not, it's not just the rates. It's not just the dispatcher. And sometimes we got to really look in the mirror at ourselves and say, okay, how many jobs have I had over the last year? And why do I keep puddle jumping?
yeah,
It can't always be somebody else's fault.
right,
And so, a lot of times it's just finding a groove. It's really sometimes it's just nobody's fault. And you just got to kind of, you're going to butt heads because you're used to doing, your own way.
you're
You're used to doing things your way, and they're used to doing things their way. And and the carrier's got some, procedures that they follow. You're not comfortable with those procedures. It might be, even down to your logging device and their PC, and they're not, they're the carrier you were last with. They were pretty lenient on PC, and this carrier is very strict. And so
yep.
you gotta, like, you just gotta feel each other out, and really, develop that relationship, build that comfort level. Sometimes you can't.
Right.
Sometimes there's just not enough. But even still, especially if you're with a larger company, see if there's another dispatcher that you can work with, because these rates people are still making money with these rates no matter where they are. You may make a little bit more or a little bit less, but a lot of times it comes down to, it also is important on where you run. Where you running in the country. If you're going to stay in Florida, or if you're going to stay, along I-10, or you're going to, stay in your own, like, group of 5 states, and you're not going to branch off,
It's tough.
it's tough. You got
It,
to be, I
yep.
say, you got to be a yes man. You got to be a yes man.
Well, and one thing I think owner operators need to understand, everybody wants dedicated freight. Dedicated freight's awesome to have. But the way the industry has went, carriers don't have as much dedicated freight as they once did. Getting it to the brokers, to the TQLs of the world, the CH Robinsons, they go out and that's all they do is go out and bid. And
Yep.
it's easier for a mega company just to hand that off to CH Robinson or TQL or any of the other ones and say, y'all just deal with it. We'll send you the times, pickup, weight. Y'all deal with it. They don't want to have to be on the phone every day with the carrier calling to do this, do that. Most of your freight now will come from a broker. It might not per se be dat board stuff, but your customers a lot of times now are brokers.
And
When
build those relationships. If you like a load, talk with, if you can't, if you're not supposed to talk with the broker, talk with that dispatcher and say, hey, you
find out
know,
that often.
find out contact information, whatever you need to do, whatever you need to do to get that load again, and then get it again, and then get it again. And before you know it, that broker's calling you or your dispatcher and saying, hey, I need Johnny again. I need him to come pick up this load. And and then they start to rely on you, and then that's even when you can see rate increases. Like, all right, we'll pay you a little bit more. We'll pay you $50 more. We'll pay you $100 more.
Yeah, because they don't have to do any work at that point. If they've got
That's
somebody,
right.
they will give you $50 more because they don't have to worry about you not being on time. That if there is a problem, you or your dispatcher is going to call right away. That makes a whole big difference. There's bad companies out there, there's good companies, and then there's companies that are in between. But the freight's all the same. And that's what I wish a lot of these guys would understand, that freight at company A, company B, and company C, they're all at the same freight. I mean, yeah, there might be company A might have this great one way lane from point A to point B, but guess what, fellas? The guys that's been there for 5 years, that's who's got those lanes. You're coming
Right.
in on the ground, having to prove yourself. So for you just to jump thinking you're going to make $500 more a week or this or that, stick it out a little bit. I think if more guys would do that, I think they would see a better settlement check at the end of the in a week after a few weeks, and then realize the first 2 or 3 weeks is going to be rough. I don't care where you go. The first couple weeks of getting going, you're starting mid pay week. You got to go pick up a trailer. That takes a day. You might be taking a power only. That might take 2 days to get to your trailer. So, and then you're already in the hole. I understand that, and it's tough. But don't take it out on your dispatcher because your first two paychecks are crap. It's not his
Right.
fault. Getting you loads every minute of the chance he can. That's just the nature of our business. And don't start on a bad note and then it'll just roll down the hill, and then you're not doing yourself any good.
Right, right. Well, while we're talking about jobs, I do want to say this podcast is being brought to you by Ready App. Drivers, stop wasting your time on long applications. With Ready App, fill out your DOT application just once. Just once. You can update it as needed. Upload your documents, update as needed, but you got them ready. Then apply for a job in just a few clicks. Just a few clicks. Quit filling out endless job applications and have it on file. Have all your documents, your 2290, your CDL, your medical card, your long form. Have it all on file, ready to go, ready to share with the company you want to get on the road with. So download Ready App, ready-app.com, ready-app.com, and get hired faster. So
Hey, and it's
that's
for
all.
you drivers too. Don't cost you a dime.
It doesn't cost you a dime.
That's right.
Completely free. Completely free.
I think that's going to be a game changer for sure.
I think it will. I think it will. So we were talking about this. You want to talk about the wind? I was dealing with the wind today on my pickleball game, trying to track the ball. The wind was crazy today down here in Florida. So, but you were mentioning the wind as well.
Yeah, I drove to Memphis today. And of course, I'm just in a little old sedan car, and I was thinking the whole time as a truck would pass, like, you know, you truckers don't get the respect that you need and deserve. And I'm sitting there
Amen to that.
all over the road, and I'm just thinking, man, if I was one of these van trailers that's empty or even loaded, man, you getting whipped on all day. So I do appreciate you guys for what y'all do. I was in Memphis for a while, then I went to Jackson, Tennessee, which is down I-40, and had a really bad wreck on I-40. I mean, it actually just smashed the SUV. You could barely tell it was an SUV. And I-40 westbound was backed up about 6 miles, I guess. It was right in the middle of town. And so, got our prayers and hearts out for everybody involved in that. I assume there was a couple of trucks involved from what I could tell, but there was an SUV. But you guys, a lot of people don't understand, and I do try to teach it a little bit about giving y'all space to make turns.
Yeah.
Pass guys real quick, so you're not having to look for us as a smaller vehicle. I know, people not getting over for you when you're trying to merge, or you're in your right hand lane on interstate, and those guys try to zoom out in front of you.
I always make sure I leave a gap. I mean, and especially at night, you know, you do it as when you're driving your car. There's times where you jerk or you you may drift a little bit.
Mhm.
Well, it's easy to correct for the most part in a car. Correcting in a truck is not easy.
Nope.
And so you see that trailer, going back. It takes a lot of skill for that driver to keep that truck straight and keep it, going all, for as many hours as they're driving at a time.
Yeah, and they got to stay calm. They can't get knee jerk reaction, and so I wish that more guys got more respect, because I did respect them today, because it was I would say it was probably 30, 40 mile an hour winds, and it
Wow. Yeah.
take much more than that to flip a rig, and and having people, because that, like, I teaching my daughter now, she'll be 16 soon to drive. It's not your driving a lot of times
Right.
you have to worry about it. It's the defensive driving, and
It
of course,
is. It's those cars coming across the median. I mean, there was a young man. He was, I mean, I say young. He's a little bit younger than me, but he's in his early 40s, and a car came across the median and smashed him, and he ended up dying this morning. I mean,
wow,
you just you just never know, and defensive driving is so important.
it
It's
is.
so, especially for young people, because, and pay attention. I mean, stay off the texting. I mean, I'm guilty of it.
Oh yeah,
I'm
me.
guilty of doing a quick answer on a text, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the shoulder, and and I always tell myself, never again, never again. So
Well, at least the cars nowadays help with a lot of that.
they do. They help keep you in your lines and stuff like that.
That's why my daughter's going to drive a newer car than I kind of want her to, just
Yeah.
for. But people have to realize the trucks don't have any of that. They don't have a little beeper saying, "Hey, you're in my blind spot coming up by my trailer on the left side or on the right side."
They will, though. They will.
Yeah, they need any way they help, because
Yeah, drivers don't like. I mean, even the collision mitigation systems that they got in there now, drivers don't like it, and I get that. But
there's
and sometimes it can be annoying and malfunction. But I'd be curious on a driver's thought on on the lanes, keeping the lane auto correct or whatever. What I'd
yeah,
be curious what drivers think of that, and having a screen that shows like who's on their side or not.
yeah.
Um, can they make an easy, lane adjustment, or do you want the truck to make that adjustment for you? I mean, my wife's car, it makes the adjustment for her. She just puts on the signal,
Hmm.
and it moves over.
Yeah, like my car, you can be on cruise and be doing 70, and you come up behind a big truck that's doing 65, and my car will slow to 65 and stay
Right.
X amount
Yeah.
of behind it, and it don't do anything. It just is running in its
Yeah.
core. The only way to go faster is to get out from behind them and have it clear, and then it'll go back to 70. So, it's making it a lot easier for sure. But the poor trucks, it's what people don't realize about truck drivers. And I guess you get it if you're not around the industry as much. They are working. They're not just driving for pleasure. That's their job. They're in that job
Right.
14 hours a day, and then they sleep in their job. Anytime it's people that are listening to us that are not truck drivers, that are just regular, car and truck, people, give the drivers, owner, operator, truck driver, any of them, the most respect you can. Give them plenty of space. If they're going to make a right hand turn, just wait 5 seconds. Let them make their turn. If you're at a light, back up if you're in a turn lane to go the same way the truck's going. Let him have. I mean, he's more than likely he's tired. He's had a long day, and he. It doesn't take but them to make a small little mistake to cost them big time. And you, if you're in it, and I just wish people would give them a little bit more to realize, hey, do you want somebody coming to your job and being right up on your rear end all day, or hovering over you, or jumping in front of you, or any of that kind of stuff? It's no different. I mean, that those guys just don't get that respect that they deserve, and I'm not sure if they ever will, because I don't think people look at it that way. But just make a thought next time you're on interstate or on the highway, you see a truck, give them a little room, because if you'll sit there, and I tell my daughter this all the time on interstate, start counting. Tell me how quick you get to 100 trucks. We're on interstate, less than a mile, mile and a half, we've got to 100 trucks. And
Oh,
people,
I believe it, especially in around Memphis.
you know,
Absolutely.
I-40 is completely. I promise you, when I was going under the underpass on I-40 in Jackson today, I probably could see 3/4 of a mile altogether lengthwise. There was over 100 trucks, and that just stopped.
Yep.
And people don't realize it unless you're looking for it, or you drive by and see a Love's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's 150 trucks parked and 20 more trying to get fuel. They're everywhere. I mean,
Hmm.
trucks are everywhere. Even on your regular 2-lane roads, you're going to meet quite a few within a couple mile radius. And just, cut them a break. There's not, don't be in a hurry. Don't cut them off. Just, trust me, it's nothing more than aggravating than being behind two trucks on interstate on a two.
Yeah. Do you like being cut off in your car? I mean,
Exactly.
and imagine what it takes to stop when you are cut off. That 18 wheeler's got needs a lot more room. And you cut them off, there's a chance they could be in your front windshield.
And you have to realize too, as a regular driver, the truck don't have to move out of the way. If you're trying to pass them real quick and then you jerk back in front of their nose, they're not going to just slam on their brakes not to hit you. If you come across, there's a good chance you're going to get clipped. Well, hey, they can't just slam on their brakes. First of all, they could lose control of the truck and trailer, which would cause more damage to everybody. And
Right.
it's just like even when you're merging on the interstate, just let the truck driver should not have to move out of that lane. And people need to realize that truck drivers should be able to stay in the right hand lane and just go down interstate and not have to worry with dealing with that truck. Now, if he can get over and he wants to, hey, that's fine. But people need to realize that don't get mad that truck driver don't get out of that right hand lane. He doesn't need to be in the left hand lane anyway, unless he needs for passing. Let him come through. Trust me, you'll be fast enough that you can come in behind him after he goes by, and then you get over the left hand lane, and a half a mile, you'll be a mile in front of him. And that's
Right.
just what people need to realize, because you know they're human just like we are, and they're not robots. They don't want to be replaced by robots in a truck. They love driving. Most of them love the culture, and just cut them a break. That's all I ask.
Well said.
No, thank
Well said. I do want to say something. I want to get off here because I want to listen to the president talk. But
you. Come on.
I don't know if real quick. Did you hear about this incident in Boston? This
Mm-mm.
knife stabbing, or well, attempted knife stabbing. It was in a Chick-fil-A in Boston, and
How can you get mad at a Chick-fil-A?
no. Well, so we won't get into that too much, but I do get mad at I always end up leaving Chick-fil-A hungry. No matter what I eat, I'm always hungry. I want more.
You know
It's
why?
not
Don't
enough.
you know
Why?
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 Because it's all so daggum much. You want more.
That's exact.
That's
That's
exactly what it is.
exactly right. It pisses me off, and I got, including myself, I got 8 mouths to feed in my house. I got 6 kids, 8 mouths to feed. But anyway, so this person comes in and starts, threatening people with a knife. I don't think they got anybody. He got anybody, but this police officer, people run out, and this off duty police officer, I believe, is off duty, ends up shooting and killing this guy. So the media comes out and says, guess what? They say, we want to offer our condolences to the family of the attacker, essentially the attacker. They want to offer their condolences to the attacker. And it's multiple left wing media outlets that come out and claim. You have people running for their lives, innocent victims, and the only way that this police officer could protect themselves is to shoot this guy.
And what people don't realize, most police officers don't want to shoot nobody because
No.
they got a conscience. They don't want to take a life, but you know, it's I'm not surprised by that at all. It's even if you're a person that carries, open carry or whatever, and you get into a situation where you have to use sometimes it's almost
Yeah.
one worth pulling
Well, I just want to say thank you to that police officer
out. Most definitely
for being brave, doing their job. It's our first responders that count.
underpaid,
And
by the way,
what's that?
underpaid job.
Underpaid job. That's right. Yeah.
That's what people I think don't understand is police officers don't make money. I mean, for and that's one thing that I've always had a problem with about police officers, and I've not had the best luck with them, like anybody else. But when they're in a situation like that one with the knife that you were talking about, that police officer wants to go home. He wants to see his.
Absolutely.
And you're telling
And
me
he was fighting for his life in there.
right, and for $40,000 or $50,000, and he's supposed to just wait to the last minute sometimes. Maybe not this incident, but you're just gonna sit there and shoot him with the taser. Tasers, in my opinion, are a joke most of the time because that seems like just pisses the guys off more that they shoot them with.
Yeah.
You put these police officers with a toy gun versus a M15. What do you expect? I mean, bad things are going to happen. You got
They
to.
are.
And yeah, I agree. I appreciate him stepping up, doing his job. He was off duty, so per se, he could have actually walked away and act like he wouldn't, and nobody would have known if there wouldn't have been a camera around.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I appreciate that because at some point, some of this stuff's got to give to where there's consequences for your action. And I think we've lost as
The
Americans.
policemen they've got to be able to do their job. And this whole deal also with the them leaking, what is it? They're leaking the information when these ICE officers are going in to make an arrest. There's liberal media outlets, left wing outlets that are making leaks out there putting leaks out there to let these guys know. You're just putting that officer in danger. You're
That's
just
right.
putting them in danger.
Well, I don't
There's
know.
no reason for it.
No, and I don't know how many times I've seen a police involved shooting on like pulling somebody over. The police officer is steadily saying, do this, do that, get on the ground, put your hands up, keep your hands
Mm-mm.
out of your waist, don't move. If people would just listen and do what they're told, okay, you might go, we're going a lot better than getting shot and killed. But
Right.
and I was always taught, even if you don't like what they're saying, yes sir, no sir, just we'll deal with it after you get to the jail. A
That's
lot
right.
these young people, they're hard headed, I guess. They just don't.
And entitled. They're hard headed and entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that just puts that officer in danger. Okay, yeah, he's the one holding the gun. Okay, but he don't have a clue what that person's got or what he don't have and what his intentions are. If you would just listen, get on the ground, put your hands behind your back, worst thing you can do is go to jail. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. If you ain't did anything wrong, you'll plead out, go home, bail out, whatever. At least go home to see your family the next day and figure out what to do next. So,
100%. So, well, you have a good night,
all
and
right.
everybody on there. I mean, I'm going to be posting this on Facebook and X. Go on there, make comments, things that you'd like to see,
Mm-hmm.
topics you'd like to discuss. If you want to be a guest on our show, we're really going to try and get that going. Hopefully, in the next week or so, we're going to get some guests lined up, especially some drivers. We want to hear,
Oh,
your point of view on a lot of things. Everybody have a good night. We'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk about the president's speech
yeah.
next
Look.
time we're on. But Justin, I appreciate it. I
All
appreciate
right.
your time.
Good night, everybody, and go check out ReadyApp.com.
All right, everybody, be safe. Drive safe.
See you, man.